Hey, it's Chris, Liege of Games. So, GenCon is right around the corner. This is going to be my preview video. I tried to cull it down to 10, but I have 15 different games that I'm going to just blast through that I'm going to tell you about that I think should be on your radar. Not because you need to buy them. I hate videos that do that. You need to buy this game right now. No, I'm not creating FOMO. I'm creating information so you can know about these games to figure out whether or not they're right for you. And these are the ones that I think are going to be making waves in the near future, either during, post, or even after that are going to get some attention, that are going to get some hype, and that are going to be good, hopefully. That being said, subscribe if you're not. On the quest to 10,000. Help me if you can. Otherwise, let's do this. So now these are in no particular order, but I'm going to talk about things that are obviously of interest to me. So we're going to talk about here War of the Ring, the card game. Now, so as someone who's never going to own a copy of War of the Rings, this is much more appealing in the sense that, one, it's card driven. There's not as much minutia. I'm not having to pay for all the miniatures. It's much less storage, and it's a complete two-player card game version of it. They said that they're going to be previewing it here at GenCon, and so you can get a little bit more of a sense of what it's actually going to look like. There was some playtesting out previously at one of the other conventions earlier in the summer, but we're going to see more hands-on. And you can already pre-order it from Ares Games right now with a November release date. Now, they're saying there's going to be 4 promos, which are non-essential, but you can start to order or pre-order from a few of the other major online sailors that are going to be minus or sans promos, depending on whether or not you feel that's okay or not. I think it's like $47 from Ares. It's maybe like 32-ish from other places. So I think Ares is actually offering free shipping in North America. So are 4 promos for a game like this worth it from that aspect if you liked this game from that side of things? You can play a couple other games, they say. They're talking about all their other ones, but this one is really going to be the big presence. Is this going to live up to its namesake or not? I am super intrigued. This is high on my wish list, but hopefully this demoing and experiences and more hands-on knowledge of what the mechanics are going to actually look like is going to be the make it or break it for me to decide whether or not I end up picking it up in the first place. Next up, I'd never actually heard of this one prior, but this is more of a Euro-style game. This is Weirdwood Manor from Grey Ridge Games. And this is based on like a whole book trilogy series that's out in the first place. So they're playing off of a known IP in that sense. This is actually a cooperative game where you are playing as heroes, kids, adventurers that are protecting Weirdwood Manor and the Lady of the Manor from the onward Fae that are attacking it. And there's dice rolling and there's Euro-inspired mechanisms that are going along with that. It has sort of a Harry Potter inspired feel in the sense that the rooms are going to be shifting, which is going to be somewhat movable, I would assume, and reconnect different rooms with each other as you're going along, creating that sort of dynamic. You're going to have an asymmetric deck that is going to be unique to your character that you will be utilizing to save the manor. Dice drafting, resource management, card allocation, asymmetric powers. It's checking a lot of boxes there for me. High degree of unpredictability as the manor shifts, as the opponent's AI deck also goes just like yours does, and as you go into these rooms in order to do your resource management style actions to give you the best tactical advantage you can over the unpredictable nature of the Fae monsters minions as you're going along, as they grow stronger towards the end of the game. This one is shooting up the wish lists already, and I'll tell you right now, this one should be on your radar if you are a cooperative fan like I am. Next up, we're going to talk about Flat Out Games' latest hit that's going to be coming to crowdfunding later this year. There's going to be some copies there that are going to be apparently maybe able to demo or some capacity see. This is called Fit to Print, where you are, as one of Ian O'Toole's colored animals here, breaking news stories. This is a tile-laying game along the lines of Flat Out Games' other recent productions for 1 to 6 players, family level, but not without its nuances for heavier, more strategic gamers, as you're trying to keep up with the local news as the editor designing the page of the paper. This one is slightly different though, because this one uses simultaneous action selection where you are grabbing pieces out of the center in order to create the puzzle of the page that you want to create in the first place. And then you or someone else will yell layout, and then you actually have to put that to test. And then the first one then yells print, makes everyone else stop doing what they're doing too. 3 decks of breaking cards, over 100 unique tiles, and asymmetric player abilities that you're going to be starting off with as the animals themselves. This one has another appeal of mass audience and just a really cool aspect of things. So I'm interested to see what Flat Out Games can do with that. Now, speaking of Flat Out Games, because of Cascadia, we're going to go over to Tabriz, which is also by Randy Flynn, who just won with Cascadia the Spiel. So what do you need to know about Tabriz in that sense then? You're going to be going through a bustling Persian bazaar, moving one of your 3 workers, landing on a spot, and doing whatever happens at that spot. Actions, buying, selling, trading, everything in between. Then at the end of that turn, you can do 1 commission based on what you have gathered with your actions previously. Each meeple assistant that you have, though, only has a limited range, so you have to be careful which one you're using and in what succession you use them. Resources fluctuate, they're limited, so you got to be careful. And you play until someone completes 9 of those commissions. When someone does that, the game's end, and then you total up and see who won. There you go, Tabriz, coming to crowdfunding as well later this year. And so we'll see what Crafty Games has got in store for us with this one. Next up, do you ever want to play Zombicide as a roll and write? Well, now you can, right? Making products that people want. What you're doing is you're playing in this 1 to 4 player cooperative Zombicide roll and write game where you are given an asymmetric character along with a weapon, or 4 weapons, I think, and an ammo track. So you're having to actually keep track of ammo. And then you are given a color that corresponds to one of your weapons that's going to give you a polyomino shape that it fills out. And then you're going to be trying to take out monsters in sort of a tower defense style-esque mechanism of knocking them out based on the shapes that you're given and that you can utilize your weapons for. Then after a certain number of rounds, add more zombies, rinse and repeat. If you knock off these zombies, as you can see here, this is what the shapes and the spaces look like as I was just describing it. And you're going to be able to upgrade your weapons in order to do more damage, in order to do more areas, or asymmetric abilities that you can use back alongside of whatever else you're doing. Then kind of a strange mechanism, you do that for like 9 rounds, you shuffle everything back up, you throw a boss in, you lay them all back out, and then if the boss is in front of you, because I guess there's going to be rotation in front of you versus like where their location is other times, you can damage the boss. If you defeat the boss after like 9 turns after the 9 rounds initially, then you win the game. So we'll see? I don't know. Mixed feelings on this one. I could very well see it going either way, so we'll see where it goes. Next up, I've talked about this one in the past. This is Garden Nation. Bombix has a local publisher, distributor that's going to be picking it up for North America or an English copy soon. So we're going to see this one come over stateside, and it's going to be apparently maybe even available along with more copies of Glow stateside during GenCon. This is a 2 to 4 player game where you're going to be rearranging parts of the city, trying to build further parts, and depending on what the location of the card gives you, which of the essentially 7 areas you can place that piece or card in the first place. However, you're going to be adding new floors, sort of like a Ginkopolis style of things, but the randomization of where you can play in combination with the card-driven tactical nature of this is going to be pretty different in that sense, but it's also going to be a little bit more of area control like Ginkopolis, where you're going to be trying to control these various areas via your different factions that are of use to you. And like the description says, the previous person's actions are going to dictate in some sense where your next actions are going to be. So it's going to be a very interesting dynamic game. I've been debating about picking up a copy overseas, having it shipped to North America for a while, but if it's going to get the English production and I can save about $30 instead on shipping, I might be willing to wait now, but that's Garden Nation. Next up, we have Czech Games' one of their 2. This is the only one that's going to be more available because Deal with the Devil won't be out until later, but I'm assuming that will be, at least, mentioned as well there. But this is Starship Captains. This is actually the one that appeals much more to me from Czech Games. This is a 1 to 4 player, sort of space-based, only different as you're upgrading your ship rather than just the bonuses that you're going to be getting in terms of resources, your crew, and then you're going to be trying to do missions and craft alongside of everything, sort of Star Trek meets space-based, if you will. Now I say all this, but this is more Euro-style action selection, resource management, engine building game, and that's really why I'm intrigued. Sort of Res Arcana meets Star Trek, if you will. I think this really is having great pieces that if they all fit together and the sum is greater than the parts, this could be a smash surprise hit for a lot of people. So I have this one pretty high on my wish list overall from Czech Games. Next up is Don't Cry For Me Argentina, the Great Western Trail version. In case you weren't aware, Great Western Trail actually just put out the second edition expansion, Railways to the North, even though the second edition was purported to have most of the stuff from the expansion in it in the first place. Apart from that, now we're getting the Argentinian version, which is one of the next ones that they've said over the next 3 years. This is the second. Last year was the second edition. This year's Argentina, and I forget what next year's is, but someone in the comments will tell me. This is the latest from Fyfe in that sense. Deck management, rondel, player upgrading boards, all of those are going to be similar. Money is going to be easier in this game, but what are the differences? There's farmers, different types of workers in that sense, and there's going to be shortcuts available to you. Do you go around the farmers? Do you utilize them? How are you going to be interacting? Personally, I have no idea, but I think this is going to be an interesting debate that comes out from the heavier Euro worker side of the crowd to say, do you need both? Are they different enough that you're happy to have both, and would you play both? Or is it going to be a one or other in this situation? So I imagine that the design choices are going to be optimized to maybe try and not produce that effect, but you're always going to have people that are going to fall on one side of the aisle or the other, and so this is going to be available shortly, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see advanced copies at GenCon, but I'm not sure what the availability is over going to look like, so don't take my word for that. Now, there's next to no information on this one coming out shortly from Gale Force 9, but that's not going to stop me from hyping it. This is coming sometime in August, we think, and so I'm assuming there will be some presence at Gen Con in some way, shape, or form. This is the latest iteration of the Firefly IP, Firefly Misbehavin. This is a faction asymmetric deck building style of game where you're just trying to complete objectives. That's all we know, folks. There is literally nothing else on the Board Game Geek page. There's no other information out there, and so we're just going to see if this is better than the other Firefly games that are out there in the first place, sort of like the pick up and deliver version, which I believe is sort of out of print, if I'm recalling correctly, as well as the legendary version of Firefly, which people weren't very happy with because they kind of used production stills and kind of didn't always look the best when they do that. So is this going to be better than the other two? I mean, the bar's not super high, but there's also still a lot of interest for this Joss Whedon franchise that never kind of went anywhere. So we'll see what comes out of Gen Con in that aspect. Now, Horrible Guild is putting out not horrible games. They're going to be premiering a game called Evergreen. What do you need to know about this green abstract style game? I mean, it's a 1 to 4 player game, abstract in nature. You're going to be planting trees and seeds to create a diverse biome. But as you're planting these seeds and trees and creating your own biomes, what you're trying to avoid also is not being too selective, and you want to be very diverse, as the places you are not planting these things become more valuable and may entice you to plant there later. That's about all the information we have right now, but I'm really intrigued. It looks really beautiful. This is sort of what I thought photosynthesis was in the first place, and the reason why I didn't pick up photosynthesis, the game, previously. So I'm really intrigued to see what Horrible Guild can do with this. They've put out a lot of other solid, lighter, family style-ish games that are really just across the board quality. So I'm really going to give this one a hard look-see, and we'll get our first hands-on at Gen Con. Horrible Guild, there you go. Now we're going to go over and see Galactic Renaissance from Christian Martinez and Margot. Now you may be going, this seems like the most generically labeled game, and that's not going to have any mass appeal, but this one is really the sequel, the spiritual successor to Enos. This one is to Enos as Rising Sun was to Blood Rage, if you will. And so this is a 2 to 5 player game that we're going to see what sort of, not 4X, but in that realm or sense is going to bring. Now you're going to be doing a little bit of a deck building mechanism where you're going to be slowly acquiring specialists via cards to increase what you're able to do on a turn-by-turn basis. Discover new planets, reconnect with lost civilizations, expand your influence, build embassies, and everything in between. So that's about all the information that we have right now, but it's got a high pedigree and it's got high expectations. So we'll see hopefully more that's revealed at Gen Con. No release date yet. It says playtime of 90 minutes, and so if you can also achieve that at the same time, that's why people are really excited about this game. Galactic Renaissance. Next up from Off the Page Games, we have Harrow County, the game of Gothic conflict. Now you may know Off the Page Games from Mind Management, and so with that in their back pocket, they are now delving into this. Now this is going to be a very interesting, different test, similar but also different. You're playing a 1 versus 1 asymmetric game of one of 3, not just 2 possible factions, but 3 possible factions, either a family trying to protect the county, a family trying to destroy the county, or a third nemesis that is trying to do something altogether different as one of the witches. And you are going to be moving across this board with a built-in cube tower to the box, it says, which is quote-unquote never been seen before, and we'll see what this actually entails. I'm really excited about this one, but I'm also being relatively reserved. Now, they say even a third player can enter this game that change the dynamics of controlling this third aspect, but you can come back and regain control in order to win. I have no clue what this actually means or how this is going to work, or if it's really going to be more feasible at 3 than 2, but it's a really intriguing premise, and I'm really excited to see if they can execute like they did with Mind Management. So that's why I have to give them a lot of wiggle room in that sense. And so we'll see what actually comes of it as Harrow County, the game of Gothic conflict, we get closer and closer to release. And now, next up is actually a failed Kickstarter project from Red Raven Games, right? Like, that doesn't sound right coming out of my mouth, but that's true. This was actually one from about a year or year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, that they launched, and it subsequently failed. It was one of Ryan Laukit's games that he actually didn't design that they put out under the label. And now it's coming back out later this year, and we're hopefully going to see more details when it comes to, I'm assuming retail. I don't think it's coming to crowdfunding now this time. And it's slowly been redone, built from the ground up since then. Now, it's still an asymmetric team game from 1 to 6 players, where one side are the Holy Knights and the other side are the Demons, but it's also offering you a purely cooperative version as well, Knights versus Demons. Campaign mode for 1 to 2 players, as you're doing more of an area control style mechanism with your team of knights or demons that all have asymmetric powers that you're choosing from. Locations and layouts are going to be different each game. It's going to give you options for modular availability there. And 1 to 2 player campaign style is going to give you a different aspect as well, more in the cooperative sense. So is it going to do much better the second time around? I mean, it sure looks like they really put a lot of effort into making this one a better game experience overall. So I'm cautiously optimistic, as someone who does not own any Red Raven games, that this is more up to my personal interest rather than a lot of the other stuff that they've put out there so far. So I'm cautiously optimistic with this one, to say the least. Next up, we have Galileo Project from Hatchet Games. This is another interesting engine building spacefaring game. This is set in the same universe as Ganymede, the previous game that they put out there, and you're going to be settling on the 4 moons of Jupiter, trying to expand your reach. You're trying to acquire more robots, trying to develop more resources and technology, building structures, and recruiting experts to help you basically colonize the best on these foreign satellites of Jupiter. The production copies right now look absolutely fantastic, but the gameplay is relatively unknown. All they talk about in the description is doing combos and engine building, as you can see with the layout here. The artwork, again, looks fantastic, but what are the symbols meaning? How are you going to be interacting on all of the 4 different moons that you're going to be having at your disposal? That's going to be the question, but I trust them to put out a relatively good product, so we'll see just how high this one flies. Next up, we're going to be talking about Unexpected Games' 3000 Scoundrels. This one is from the same designer as The Initiative. Corey, I can't pronounce his last name, and I'm not going to embarrass him or me by screwing it up, but this one has a really intriguing aspect where you are sort of doing a combination of bluffing poker, if you will, with asymmetric combo built characters using AEG's sort of clear card styling system, where you can create different combinations of scoundrels, putting 2 cards overlaying each other to create a new scoundrel. Taking a different element by laying a card down secretly, telling the other players what it is, and then taking the actions associated with that on the board. However, it doesn't have to be the card that you actually said. If people call you out on it and they're right, they're going to get a significant benefit. You're going to be hurt in that sense. But if they call you out on the wrong, well, then the shoe is going to be on the other foot. Drafting, comboing, and deduction is going to be of the utmost importance in this game. We're going to see sort of where it falls, but this one could be another good sleeper hit, as someone who wasn't really a big fan of Western Legends, sort of filling a similar niche, but with a slightly different aspect. Just a question of, do you like that BS aspect in a game that's not just purely that, right? And so we're going to see what Unexpected Games has in store for us in that way. So last up, we're going to talk about Fyfe, which is actually available right now in Europe from Pegasus Spiel, but is coming over for North American pre-order very shortly. Players have their own 5x5 grid in which they're going to be filling up via pieces that either have different colors, numbers, or symbols. And depending on what these outside markers tell you to do, that's going to be how you're trying to score for the end game. It's going to change and be modular in each game that you play, and those are the dynamics that you're going to have. Now, you also have these lucky charms down here, not the cereal, not the marshmallows that we have a separate box of, because, nowadays you can buy the whole bag of just marshmallows, which obviously we can't avoid. But you can play those in order to change the rules of the game of how you play your markers, or you can save them at the end for extra victory points depending on how many you have. After you fill all 25 spaces, the game ends. It has a very Azulish vibe with a slightly different manner of playing, with slightly different, rules each time you play it, and different combos that are going to need to be created. So really, I almost pre-ordered this one already, and it's going to be sort of hard for me to hold off on clicking it so I can really get this more abstract style game in my collection, and that is Fyfe. Now, one last one. One list wouldn't be complete without a bonus game included in there, and this is Empire's End, coming from Brotherwise Games, where you are basically having disasters happen upon your civilization, and based on the disasters that you survive, you are going to be able to upgrade what your civilization can do, how it's going to operate, and just making it better overall. You bid via resources in order to figure out who's going to take said disaster in the first place. You're going to be going along phase by phase, determining what happens during that phase, whether you produce, whether you gather resources, what your income looks like, or whether a disaster happens. And like I said, when you get a disaster, you get a new innovation, and then you also get a new ability to help you overcome. Territories, military, as well as economy are all going to factor into the victory points at the end of the game, so you're just building the best civ you can. I'm really intrigued by this one. I've had this one on my radar for a couple months already, and so we'll see what they show, because I believe this one's also coming to crowdfunding sometime in Q4 of this year. So there you go. Those are my 15 games. Any of those sound intriguing to you? All the links for Board Game Geek descriptions and details will be down in the comment section or video description, and you can check them out on your own. What else am I missing? Obviously, I can't cover them all. Obviously, I scrolled through all of the board game listings for GenCon. I went to Board Game Geek, I scrolled through all 524 that were on there, and these are the ones that caught my eye, and that's why I wanted to bring you a more consolidated version so you don't have to scroll through there as well. There you go. That's it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what caught your eye, or nothing. Save your wallet for crowdfunding too if nothing caught your eye. So there you go. As always, if you like this sort of thing, there's more where that came from. Give me a thumb, give me a sub, and I'll see you around. Stay classy. Thanks for watching in the first place. Have a great day.